Hi guys, I'm Yana. You're with ARTFIL How To. Links to patterns, additional materials and blog posts can be found in the description below. Stay with us till the end to learn more about the colors and the yarns I'm using during this tutorial. To knit the Mojave socks, you will need one small ball, about 30 grams of contrast color, your main color, a pair of circular needles with minimum 32 inches of cable, scissors, darning needle. Optional, you may use a marker, stitch marker, to mark the beginning of the round, and safety pin or detachable stitch marker to mark front and back of the socks. The pattern is written instructions available for free on artfil.ca. The Mojave socks start with the cast on at the beginning of the toe, going through the foot portion with your main color, and afterthought heel, main color for the leg, and finish with ribbing and cast off at the end of the ribbing. To start knitting from the top, we have to cast on stitches. The pattern comes with 3 sizes, small, medium and large. For medium and large we need 28 stitches in total, and for small we need 24 stitches. Take your circular needle, place the 2 needles straight, parallel, and hold it with the right hand. With the left hand, take your working yarn, fold in a way that you have a tail at least 30 centimeters. It's always better to have more than not enough. Take this fold and place it on over the upper needle. We'll call this needle upper and this needle lower needle. The tail is facing you. Go behind the working yarn, grab the tail and cross it with your working yarn. That way we are forming very loose loop. With the index and the thumb, go between the 2 strands under the cross of the loop. With the rest of the fingers, secure the strands, pull the index and the thumb, and tighten the first loop. We count this one as a first stitch. To create the second stitch, we will work with the strand coming from the index. Move forward, go between the 2 needles and over the lower needle, return in position. This is our second stitch. Each stitch for this cast on comes in a pair. That means first stitch is from the thumb strand and the second is from the index strand. Thumb strand, go between the stitches, between the needles, sorry, over the upper needle, return in position. Index strand between, over the lower, return, thumb between, over the upper, again the index over the lower. Right now I casted on 6 stitches. I will need 24 for small size. Once you casted on the required stitches on each needle, take your 2 needles and turn 180 degrees. With one of the fingers, keep the tail secure. Now we are ready to start knitting. To do so, pull the lower needle to place the stitches on the cable and form the magic loop position of your needles. Start knitting from left to right as you usually would do. After the first stitch, the tail will be secured, so no need to keep it any longer. The first round is to secure the Caston stitches. We will knit across the first round. Once you finish the stitches on the first needle, rotate your work 180 degrees again. As I said, I have pull-full cables. Then place the stitches from the cable on the needle and pull the lower needle. Continue by knitting the stitches on your second needle. Once you're ready with the round, pull the tail to secure again, turn 180 degrees, and our cast on from the toe up is done. From now on, we have to start working on the increases on the toe by making one left on the right side and one right on the left side. Every time we turn the work, we have to place the work stitches on the upper needle and pull the lower needle. First round of the increase, the toe. Knit the first stitch. Lift the strand between the two stitches and place it from front to back on the left hand needle. Knit this stitch through the back loop. Knit until you have only one stitch left on the needle. I have the last one stitch on the left hand needle. Lift the strand between the two stitches and place it from back to front on the left hand needle. Knit this stitch as you usually would do, from left to right. It's a bit tight, you may need help. It's really tight. There we go. And knit the last stitch. Repeat the increases on the other side for the other needle. We knit the first stitch. We lift the strand between the two stitches and place it from front to back. We knit the stitch through the back loop. Continue knitting until we have only one stitch on the left hand needle. When you have one stitch on the left hand needle, lift the strand and place it from back to front and knit as you usually would do. Knit the last stitch. Turn your work 180 degrees and work the second round of the pattern, which is knit across the entire round. I will switch to my favorite Portuguese style of knitting to be able to knit this faster, and we'll be back once we're ready with all our increases and ready to start knitting the foot of the sock. Continue increasing until you have the requested number of stitches on each needle. Once you're ready, you add your main color and continue knitting as per your pattern. In this example, I have my toe knit to the required stitches. Then I knit according to the pattern, the instep spare pattern and the sole a regular jersey knit, stockinette stitch knitting. We knit as per pattern. When you reach the end of the first needle, rotate your work 180 degrees. Your sole is facing you. Place your stitches on the needle, and instead of working with your working yarn, we are going to bring a piece of scrap yarn in contrast color. You will need approximately 2 feet of yarn. You don't need to tighten or do something special. You just start knitting with it until the row is done. You don't need a long tail as well. Just knit the row with the scrap yarn. Once you finish your row, leave the two ends on the outside of the sock and slip back on the left hand needle all stitches knit with the contrast scrap yarn. Once you return all of them on the left hand needle, then take your working yarn and knit this row again with your working yarn. Pull well to close the gap and knit once more. Once you finish to knit the stitches on this needle, turn your work, keep the scrap yarn ends outside of your knitting, and continue knitting as per your pattern for the leg portion. Our afterthought heel stitches are on place. After you place the stitches, you work the pattern on both sides. you work until you are happy with the length of your leg, or if according to the pattern a size equal to your foot size. The ribbing for the cuff is the size, approximately the size of your toe. Now it's time to pick up the stitches for our afterthought heel. To pick up the stitches for the afterthought heel, you use your circular needles. It is good idea to use 1 or 2 sizes smaller needles to pick up the stitches. If you don't have, don't worry. You take your first needle. If you look closely, every stitch is forming a V. We will need the V, the right leg of each V, and the tail we left outside of the sock is showing us where is our very first stitch to pick up. This is my very first stitch. This is the tail, my first right leg. You skip the left leg and we go the next right leg. Go and pick up all right legs all across this side of the sock. The other end of the scrap yarn is showing you your very last stitch you have to pick up. Move these stitches on the cable, turn around your sock so the cuff is facing down, find where is your end and start picking up stitches, the right leg of every single stitch again across this side of the sock. This is my very last stitch. Once you're ready picking up stitches, we have to release the scrap yarn. With a darning needle, start unraveling the scrap yarn. Once we are done unraveling the scrap yarn, we are ready to start knitting our heel. Attach your contrast color. You have to pick up 2 stitches between the 2 needles on both sides of your heel to close all gaps. Do not pick up the strand between the 2 needles. Go the stitch below the stitch you have to knit, twist and lift this stitch on your needle. Knit this stitch with your yarn, then continue knitting across the round. When you reach the last stitch, go and pick up under it the left strand, the left leg of the stitch below, lift it and knit this stitch. Turn around, place the next stitches without losing your previous stitches. When you pick up stitches to close the gap between the two needles, do not pick the first strand. Go and pick the left leg of the stitch that holds this strand. Pick and place it on your left hand needle, then knit through the back loop to twist it. This will close nicely your gap between the two needles. When you pick up your stitches and knit one round with your contrast color, you have to start decreasing on both sides of your heel until you have 24 stitches in total, 12 on each needle. To make the decreases, knit the first stitch, slip the next two stitches as if to knit 1, 2, and knit them together. Continue until you have only 3 stitches left on the left hand needle. When you have 3 stitches, knit 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch. Turn your work and repeat for the other side, the second needle. Knit the first stitch, slip 2 stitches as if to knit, and knit them together. Continue until you have only 3 stitches. Knit the 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch. Next round is a knit round. Continue making decreases every second round until you have 12 stitches on each needle. When, after decreasing, you reach the requested 12 stitches per needle, or 24 in total, we have to graft together to close the heel. Grafting, or also called Kitchener stitch, is performed on the 2 needles placed straight. Make sure you have equal number of stitches on the 2 needles. You take and pulling about 2 feet of yarn, cut the yarn and thread on a darning needle. To work the stitches, you have to remember the knit stitch is the first stitch and the purl stitch is the back stitch. First we need to make the setup. The setup is made opposite of the rest of the stitches. Our first stitch will be the purl stitch, pull through the yarn, and our second stitch will be the knit stitch. Now we are ready to start grafting. The first stitch is always knit stitch and push to let it down. After that you purl one stitch on the same needle. Then we go on the back needle. We purl and cast off one stitch. Then we knit the second stitch and we leave it on the needle. Continuing that way. Purl, knit and let it go one stitch. Purl the next stitch on the front needle. The very last stitch, first one is knit and the second one is purl. Pull through. Those two stitches are always loose. For that reason I go inside my sock. I find where is the closest stitch. I go through and pull to push the two loose stitches inside. There we go. We have completely closed, weaving ends, and our first sock is ready. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.